Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna say.
Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of May 2nd. And it's really always a pleasure and an honor to have our next guest, the one and only Don Rose, on. So good day to you, Don, and thanks for coming on.
Always my fun.
A lot of the media these days are talking about Trump's first 100 days.
Yeah.
And, he's not getting high marks, but I'd love to know what your thoughts are about the first 100 days of this current kind of miserable situation we find ourselves in.
Well, I mean, they've been absolutely horrifying. It's an artificial mark. We talk about the 100 days based on some historic episode when somebody wrote about how productive Franklin D. Roosevelt's first 100 days were. And so we've always, ever since then, presidents have been marked on the 100 days, which don't mean much because they've got 4-year terms, and some of them move more slowly, and some of them I don't think anybody, even Roosevelt, has tried to enact as much. I mean, he has signed dozens and dozens and dozens of edicts, some of which, have the force of law, most of which have been devastating to the country, to the world, and nobody ever heard of teaming up with this guy from outside, Musk, the richest man in the world, given the chore of, in effect, trying to destroy the infrastructure of the United States government. Now, a couple of the things that in these edicts, the New York Times has a whole section on them today. It's just hundreds to think of what is the worst. A couple are very, very, very serious and will have to be decided by the Supreme Court. One is to abolish citizenship at birth in the United States. This has been in the 14th Amendment of the United States a long, long, long time. It's been tested in the courts before, but now he wants to do away with it. Now, I don't think he'll get away with it. It was immediately suspended by other courts. But the Supremes will have their final word about it. I'm fairly optimistic they're not going to overturn this one, although they have, overturned important things of the past, like Roe Wade. So it's always a little dicey, but you can feel good about this one, I think. The other that is also horrifying is having declared that we are at war because two countries have sent their gangs to invade the United States. We're supposed to have MS-13 and the Aragua one, which is just an absurd idea, but utilizing that pretext as a war power, as he is, I should say, is able to declare this an emergency, expanding his war powers. And this is where he's throwing people out of the country. He's even talking about deporting citizens. It's a total mess. And the big problem here is that he has lifted habeas corpus, what we call due process. Due process is a fancy word for a trial or a hearing. And people who are non-citizens who live in the United States under various forms of visa or special permits, or people who came here from the Ukraine, for example, as special immigrants because of the Ukraine war. All of these things, he now claims the ability to throw out without due process. Well, that's again a very, very serious violation of the Constitution, and we've got to see how that holds up in the courts. If you can suspend due process for non-citizens, who knows but what the next move may be to abolish due process for Americans, legitimate, born here, long-time American citizens. Under the certain readings of what he has claimed, we are all vulnerable for deportation, theoretically. He has not tried to deport a full-term citizen yet, but I think he's going to test it out.
I think my wife came in last night and told me that Rachel Maddow was talking about U.S. citizens being deported. And I don't know if it was something that happened or not, but it certainly is scary. To counter this guy, we probably have to not only head to the streets, but also plan on turning out the vote. And you and I, we live in a wonderful state, the great state of Illinois, and we really have a pretty wonderful, it turns out, governor Pritzker. And he was up in New Hampshire just recently and gave a very fiery take it to the streets message and a challenge to Trump on every level. What's your take on him these days and his possible next moves?
Well, I think it's very clear that he's running for president. He's been talked about for a long, long time. For one reason, he's a governor of a major blue state, a major state. And the fact that he's a billionaire and could virtually finance his own campaign is an attractive idea. We would certainly raise money for him, but the fact that he's got that backup relieves one of the pressure and gives him an advantage in a primary against many of the others. Now, he has not been a particularly charismatic guy, but I think his presentations are improving. This speech he gave, I don't know who wrote it for him, but it was brilliant. Could have been written by the most progressive of us around, surprisingly so, which tells me something else. I am sure he did not undertake as woke a speech as this and as fighting, saying we've got to create a disturbance. He did not undertake that without, I'm sure, testing it very, very carefully. The one thing you can afford to do when you've got all that money is do some testing on any 100 words you want you want to speak, and it's a good sign to me that this approach is the one that he found acceptable, if not preferred. So that says that the public is more ready for these kind of fighting words, and that in itself is useful.
As you know, I had on the show recently Jonathan Alter, and he, when talking about presidential candidates and elections, his response to the Pritzker question was he didn't think he'd be a good candidate because he's a billionaire, and despite the advantages of being a billionaire, he thought that might, since we're attacking the billionaires and the billionaire class these days, that wouldn't be so good. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think attacking the billionaire class in general goes very far. There's wonderful billionaires. George Soros, right. look at our most wonderful billionaire around. So, oligarchs and so on. I think those things would fade away. You would decide as the campaign goes on exactly how to do it, and you would, obviously say there's good billionaires like George Soros and like J.B. Pritzker, and there's the Musks of the world, and even let's remember our esteemed president himself is a billionaire, so on. The other part of the 100 days that I wanted to mention that is very, very important is that all of these destructive acts he's done, he's going to be causing deaths all over the world by cutting off foreign aid funds of various kinds, scientific research, to say nothing of the healthcare devastations that the Junior Kennedy is going to bring about. But the important thing is that the public has rejected these things almost unanimously. We've seen a slew of polls, I can't even think of how many, some trying using traditional language and some trying other approaches to how we feel about him. And the basic fact is that he is, by all of these polls show that on a approval basis, he is 10 points underwater. That in itself suggests that he will clearly lose the House at the next elections, unless he's able to recover some of those points. But as often happens, you go to everything he's done on immigration, on the economy. This is the first time he's ever come out underwater on the economy. People always somehow thought that he would be good for the economy, even if they didn't vote for him. So he has flunked every test of these horrors that he's done in the first 100 days, and it's likely that the descent will continue. I don't know how he can recover from it, because he is still very much wed to the tariffs, which are a big part of his undoing. He believes in these tariffs, and although it's looking now like he was using them as a negotiating tool because they're so unpopular, I think he will try to invoke them or re-invoke them, and we're still, with all the pauses and special exceptions and this and that, the tariffs are still with us, and the economy is going to get worse. Most people think there will be a recession this year, and that will be death to him. With a recession, he may even lose the Senate. Not that you want to wish for a recession, but the Senate map looks pretty safe for him right now, but the House is extremely vulnerable, and that could stop further horrors from happening. But that's still almost a year away, more than a year away.
Let's keep talking the future elections. But we have a situation in Illinois where Dick Durbin, who's been our senator for a long time, just decided he's not going to run again at 80 years old. And he's number 2 in the Senate. And as you know, and you could shed some light on, there are a whole lot of people who are thinking about running for that seat, from Juliana Stratton, who Pritzker has endorsed, as has Tammy Duckworth already. Mm-hmm. There's Lauren Underwood, who I think is a favorite of yours, but
that's my favorite.
The question is, so will we still retain that seat, that House seat, in a kind of a purple district? There's also Robin Kelly. There's Alexei Janulius, who's the Secretary of State, and Raja Krishnamurti, who has a chunk of money too. Your thoughts on the potential candidates and who might be the next senator from Illinois?
Well, I think the leading candidates right now are Alexei Janulius, who still has, questions to answer about years ago when his bank went broke, giving bad loans to mobsters, to the mafia, and to crooks like Tony Resco. We could go into that whole history. Juliana Stratton has to be considered a favorite, a front runner right now, because of Pritzker's endorsement and Tammy's endorsement. I don't know if the Democratic National Committee will make an endorsement, but she is most likely to receive it if they make one. She has not a major record of accomplishment. The lieutenant governor's job is, as I described in one article, vacuous. You really don't do anything except wait to get promoted to governor, as happened to Pat Quinn, who got very, very lucky. Stratton, however, has been a champion of the criminal justice system, in speaking out. But she only served one term in the legislature, so she really didn't get a chance to define herself very strongly there. Nevertheless, she's a favorite. She would not necessarily have been picked to be lieutenant governor had the party not seen high potential for her, and someone they thought would be a good governor if she inherited the job. Krishnamurti, I think, of all the of the three Congress people who are running, has been banking money for years and years. A very ambitious guy, and he seems to be a media favorite. So it's an unforgettable name, no matter how you pronounce it. And so he's going to be right up there. It's hard to say who the public sees and who they throw away. Robin Kelly actually was made head of the party for a brief while until they asked her to step down because she was not permitted, as a congresswoman, she couldn't raise money for that. She's got a very good progressive record. The party line is generally progressive. None of these people would be rogue Democrats. Nothing near a mansion. They're all, I would say, in the generally liberal to progressive arena. So no matter who wins, we don't have any potential disasters.
Don, do you have any thoughts on Frerick, who I think that's his name? He's our treasurer, big, tall guy, went to Yale. I think he was an athlete.
Frears, yeah. He's been a solid performer also, but in a very low-key job. Nobody knows what the treasurer does. They say, what kind of job is he doing as treasurer? Fine. He hasn't stolen any money. There have been no catastrophes. But once again, a very decent guy, and his Facebook postings show him to be progressive as any of the rest of them. But I don't see him rising for any reason. There's so many, so much power and money out there for two or three candidates. So we'll see. Lauren, the reason I'm so entranced with Lauren Underwood is that she was able to, years ago, flip a nearly all-white, strongly Republican district as a black woman winning a primary first and then winning, not comfortably, but by a few points, and staying there. And now, no, since she has come in there, the district. The district was reconfigured to make it more comfortable for her. So if she unfortunately should lose and not become the senator, the seat would probably still remain Democratic. So, and I think, needless to say, that whoever wins the primary is tantamount to winning the seat itself. There's just too many Democrats, and unless something awful happens, like to Janulius 12 years ago or so, whenever it was, when the stench around that bank scandal took him down, and we got a Republican named Kirk who served one term. But otherwise, I think we can say that the winner of this primary will be the next senator. Who will replace him as number 2 is not decided by the people of Illinois, but by the Senate itself.
Well, let's move it a little closer to home. And right after Durbin announced that he was not going to run for another term, we heard just kind of mentioned afterthought on public radio that Jane Schakowsky in a month was going to announce that she's not going to run. And, Jan's been a longtime favorite, of really solid progressive, recently challenged by some influencer who was going to run. I can't remember or pronounce her name.
No, not an unpronounceable name for sure.
She got a lot of press all of a sudden, and since Jan is not running, I definitely am looking for someone besides that to root for. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this. I think it's the 9th Congressional District. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. And Jan Schakowsky, now that she's going to step down.
Well, she will certainly be a loss. She's been one of the most valuable members of the House. She's made herself a national standout, which is very difficult. You got hundreds of competitive people, including people in your own party. She doesn't get on the air as much as Krishnamurthy does, who seems to be a media favorite. But I don't know who of a lot of progressive people in that district. I don't know anyone who, other than this unpronounceable woman, has expressed interest in succeeding her. Nobody wants to be the person who tries to challenge somebody as popular as she. The only issue that might rise up there, I don't know whether it will be whether the seat will continue to be Jewish. Remember, it's a seat that was long held by Sidney Yates,
right,
and was considered, quote, the Jewish seat in the city.
Right, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that still plays. There's still a lot of progressive Jewish people in the district, but I don't know.
Well, that can become a controversy too, But we've got a Jewish governor who may be running for president. We may have as many as 3 Jewish people running for president. The governor of Pennsylvania, the governor of Illinois, quite possibly somebody like Adam Schiff, who would be formidable. So that's going to be a coming issue, considering all the discussion of anti-Semitism and how that might play out in a Democratic primary or in a general election. But I really can't speak to potential successors if, as expected, she says she's not going to run. All I can do is mourn the loss and congratulate her for many years of great service and a very, very strong congresswoman.
Well, Don, we're running out of time. I was going to ask you real quick. I'd give you 30 seconds on the status of our mayor. Where do you think he's at?
He's a loser. I don't see any way he can be reelected. He may try to rehab himself a bit, but nobody comes back from rankings like he's got. Even from his own progressive allies realize that he's over his head. He is not an evil person by any means, but and I agree with many of his progressive goals, but he simply can't govern. We just got a guy who's scared right now. He is way over his head, and he knows it, which is what makes it keep getting worse and worse.
Don Rose, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'll look forward to talking to you as soon as I can, but hopefully about a month from now.